Welcome to Wine Soundtrack USA. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world in 30 answers. Discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends and listeners of Wine Soundtrack. This is Allison Levine, and today I'm sitting in the southwest corner of the Santa Rita Hills in Santa Barbara wine country, and I'm at the Hilt with winemaker Matt Dees. Matt, welcome, and tell us about the Hilt, where we're located, and about this amazing property we're at.
Sure. So we are located, as you mentioned, the southwest corner of the Santa Rita Hills, literally forming the boundary of the AVA. We have a property here that's about 4,000 acres. About 200 are planted to vine. It's our home vineyard. On this property, there are actually three vineyards. There's Puerto del Mar, which is where the winery is. There's a vineyard about 95 acres called Radian. And then further east, there's a small vineyard about the same size, 95 acres called Bentrock.
And the grapes that you have planted here?
Predominantly Pinot Noir. We're starting to move a little bit more to Chardonnay. I've planted a really small section of Syrah and a little bit of Riesling, actually.
We just came down from being at the top of the vineyard. It's pretty magnificent. We were up at Radiant. Wind is blowing. The sun is shining, but it was cool and amazing. You said you're growing Pinot Noir. How much wine are you making off of this vineyard? You're doing all estate fruit, right?
Yeah, for Pinot Noir, it's all estate. So we still sell a lot of fruit. A 200-acre vineyard, that's a lot of fruit. We're still a fairly small brand. We currently make, let me do some quick mental math on that. We make about 5,000 cases of Pinot Noir a year out of this property.
And how much Chardonnay?
We make about 3,000 to 4,000 cases of Chardonnay a year.
Ah, fantastic. And where can we find your wines? Are they in markets across the U.S.?
Yeah, national distribution. We have a lot of markets overseas. We have a lot of export markets. And we will soon be opening a tasting room, knock wood, in about 12 months.
We will knock wood with you. You're from Kansas, so I'm curious, what is your first memory relevant to wine? You didn't really grow up in a wine-growing area.
No, Kansas, a lot of wonderful things about Kansas. It's not really a fine wine-growing mecca, but we do love our food, and we do love our drink. One of my first memories, boy, it's a really good question. My brother, for one of my father's birthday, I can't remember what it was, he took me to a store called Gomer's. It's a phenomenal place in Kansas City. It actually is. It's a lovely, lovely cellar. And we bought a bottle of 1964 Chambertin. I don't remember the producer for the life of me because I was probably 18 or 19 years old. And that was one of the first wines that really opened my eyes to kind of the majesty of wine and the potential for something beyond just a simple beverage. I grew up drinking, the good stuff.
Yeah.
Coors Light and maybe some Mad Dog and really fine fermented beverages. But I think, that might have been my first. I had a couple others that were very influential, but I think the first one that really, really knocked me out of my seat was that.
And so we were talking, and I know that you went to school in Vermont where you first started making wine. We'll let that sit with people for a second. And that you spent time in Napa, New Zealand, and now you're here in Santa Barbara. So you've kind of traveled around the world a bit and tasted wine in different places. Is there a particular country that stands out for you of what's sort of exciting going on?
It has to be Santa Barbara. I think Vermont was, that's a story for another day, but Vermont was really incredible. We made some beautiful wines, and I can't imagine a better place to learn where to make wine because you realize immediately that it's not all romance and fun, it's brutal. Making wine in Vermont is brutal, and we made really gorgeous wines. I think Napa was really eye-opening to me as well, as was New Zealand. But to me, at the time, the styles of Napa, New Zealand weren't quite my cup of tea. I happened to be in Napa during some really warm vintages and made some really gorgeous wine. I was able to really learn a lot at the feet of some really brilliant winemakers and great vineyards. But the wines were really big and rich and quite lovely. In New Zealand, they were pretty dicey and icy and steely and gorgeous. And it was like biblically raining one year. I think it rained 40 straight days. And I thought we'd see blood in the rivers, frogs falling from the sky. But we made some gorgeous wines. And I think kind of in between those two, kind of like Goldilocks and Three Bears. Uh-huh. One was a little too warm, one was a little too cold. And Santa Barbara to me has always kind of been the perfect combo of the two. There's richness in the wines, but there's also tension. And so for me, I guess the perfect place to make wine is this fair county.
Mm-hmm. And of course, you picked one of the toughest places to do it because up in the top of that vineyard there, it was not, as you were saying, the most welcoming to vines, diatomaceous earth that is hard as can be.
Yeah, we're not making it easy on ourselves. I think you really kind of reap the benefits, though, eventually from having vineyards that kind of teeter on the side of extreme difficulty, I suppose, right? I mean, the roots can get deep. They have to fight for it. The grapes can get ripe, but they have to really, again, fight for the sugar and fight for the balance. And there's a tension to the wines that we make off of properties like that really shines through.
Do you think there's a such thing as a perfect variety?
Ooh, I don't think so. I think as far as lacking any holes or any weaknesses, Cabernet Sauvignon actually, I know we're talking Pinot and Chard. Cab is kind of tough to beat. I think just when it's at its most magnificent, I think Cab is almost without fault.
Wow.
Albeit I don't drink a great deal of Cab. No, yeah, in Santa Rita Hills, I would say Chardonnay is probably the magic grape here. I think Chardonnay in Santa Rita Hills can basically get ripe, but it's so expressive of terroir and it's so open to sight, and specifically there's a real electricity, there's a vibrancy, almost a vibration to the wines in Santa Rita Hills that one can pick up, and a saltiness. Like I was saying, a little bit along the lines of having a shot of like an oyster, a raw oyster, and then drinking the nectar out of the shell. To me, that's a wonderful combination.
So not so much a perfect variety, but a perfect variety for a particular place.
A heavenly fit.
Heavenly fit.
Yes.
So if you look back at all the wines that you've drunk in your life so far, is there one particular wine other than the wine that your dad bought when you were 18? Is there another wine, another experience that was sort of an aha moment for you? I mean, I'm sure you've had more than one, but anything stand out?
Oh, sure. I mean, every day I drink wines that blow my mind. I back when we moved down here in 2004 and we were looking at the wines that really just kind of cemented this region, I think, as far as a world-class region in my mind. I think a lot of the Brewer Clifton wines from the 90s and early 2000s still, to me, are some of the finest examples. We've had, I recently had a Faciega from Rick Longoria in 06 that was just heavenly. But along the way, there have been a lot of wines that have kind of turned me one direction or another. Mm-hmm. I remember specifically a 1989 Chateau Certain de Mai de Certain from out of Pomerol that I drank alongside a 1995 Stagland Family Vineyard Cabernet. Led me here one way or another, but wines that really just kind of rocked my world.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so if we were to come to your cellar, no matter how large or small it was, what would we find in there?
Ooh. In my cellar today, as if I have a grandiose, huge cellar. In my, I prefer to call it my cave.
Okay.
Yeah, in my cavern. A lot of white Burgundy, a lot of wines from my good friend Jean-Marc Vincent from Fonte. I think his Gravier is still one of my favorite wines on this earth. I would say there's a great deal of Santa Rita Hills Chard. There's a great deal of Santa Rita Hills Pinot. I'm a sucker for Barolo. I'm a sucker for the Northern Rhone. And it's interesting, I was actually thinking about my cellar. My cellar is like a wonderful history of all that I've done and all that I've drank and all that I've traveled. When I first started buying wine and getting really excited, I was studying in Australia. And so I bought tons of Shiraz. I bought Shiraz for days. I have cases and cases of old Australian Shiraz. And it's funny, I think a lot of people would probably identify with this, but I've gone lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter in my wine preference, in my wine drinking. Because I jumped from Australian Shiraz to Chateauneuf du Pape. Mm-hmm. And then everything has gotten lighter and fresher as I've gone. And I still love those wines, but if you dig to the bottom of my cellar, through a couple of cases, there are still some wonderful examples of my evolution of consumption. Mm-hmm. One isn't better than the other, but I've changed to the lightest of the light, to the freshest of the fresh. And I think Santa Barbara probably has something to do with that. I mean, I grew up in Kansas City where it's cold and there's winter and there's seasons. And one can still enjoy the seasonal affective disorder. Here I wake up and get out of bed and there's, I want to close the shutters and drink a really hearty red wine and have a big stew and do something wonderful. And I open the shutters and it's sunny and there's people playing Frisbee with their dogs. And I just want to say, let me be cold and drink my wonderful red wine. So that has something to do with my change, but there's a great deal of Chablis to that effect. I drink a great deal of Sancerre. Fresh, light, wonderful.
Is there anything in particular you've been drinking lately that has been drinking really well out of your cellar?
Of our own production?
I don't know. What have you been drinking lately?
I drank a lot of our 2016 Estate Chardonnay, to be honest, because it's really delicious right now.
Is that what I have in my glass?
You have the 17.
Oh.
Yeah. We'll open the 16. What else has been quite nice these days? We drank a great deal of... We drink a great deal of Tecate. It always is very fresh and nice when you open it. With a little lime, a little salt, it goes a long way. No, we just, again, the joy of what we've been drinking recently, the Rita Hills Chardonnays, is that you can drink them very young when sulfur is still evident, but because of the richness of fruit, they're glorious. And you can drink them with a great deal of age. And they take on a wonderful oxidase note that I adore in Chardonnays with age, and I come to expect. But specifics, give me a while. I'll come back to it. I'll get you a couple.
Okay. So I'll ask you another challenging question. What's your opinion on wine critics and scores?
Aha! You're lobbing me softballs. It's complex. I think it's a wonderful thing. I don't, as a consumer, with wines that can be beyond our nightly budget, I think we need guidance. And I think we're really blessed, to be honest, that a majority of the critics themselves have incredibly consistent palates. And oftentimes are very kind of evocative writers who can really display like the raw energy of a wine, which is hard. For those who have tried to write about a wine, I have to shower after I write tasting notes. I'm like, oh God, I can't look at my wife. She's like, did you really say like Mexican breadfruit? I'm like, oh, I can't look at myself. No, but to be honest, I don't know. I think a combination of that kind of reliance on a really wonderful palate and a really wonderful writer and someone who's in touch with the world of wine, and more importantly, someone who has a relationship with a winery and can say, wow, I prefer this to their 97, or I prefer this to their 08, or if you're looking for a wine with more richness, try their 16, whatever it might be. That's worth its weight in gold. I also hope that the world of consumers going to their local wine shops in the corner and someone saying, wow, last time you bought such and such, maybe try something. You had an Alsatian Riesling last time. Was it too rich? Was it too, maybe try something else. Somewhere we need to get access to information. Somewhere we need access to advice. And wine criticism today is incredibly healthy because of the quality of the critics. And I think there's always room to get back to the old-fashioned way as well of talk to your local fishmonger, cheesemonger, wine retail shop, whatever it is. And hopefully there's a balance of both.
So I'm going to throw you now the hard question. Red, white, or rosé?
Mm-hmm.
As a drinker.
Today?
Sure.
As a drinker, white wine right now in my life for the last couple of years. It was red wine for, how old am I now? I'm 41. So for the first, let's talk about my legal drinking, in case my mother's listening. For the first 21 years, or 23 years of my consumption, it was red. It was always red. I was, again, in cold places where you can curl up beside a fire and actually have a really tannic old Rioja. That's wonderful. But since I moved here, Chardonnay is kind of filling my days, so I got to go white.
Yeah. Still or sparkling?
Still. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. So, with the diversity of wine, and when you were talking about the acidity of the Chardonnay, the electricity, and then, tasting through some of the Santa Rita Pinots and tasting that kind of earthiness, the tannins with them, how do you approach pairing those with food? What is your rule, or do you have rules when it comes to pairing wine and food? Or do you think that, there are no rules?
I think for example, just speaking in Santa Barbara terms, we are just, it's just an embarrassment of riches for food here. And literally everything is fresh 12 months a year, 24 hours a day, you can find it. So with so many flavors and so many textures and all of these things, I think it's mind-blowing to try to come up with a single pairing or whatever it is. I think it's always very active. There are no strict rules, I would say. You can do anything with white, you can match anything with red. And
is there something you're looking for? Like if you're cooking, if you're grilling some fish, are you looking for how you're preparing it, what you're doing, or what the wine offers, or just kind of what you're in the mood for?
I mean, to dork out.
Go for it.
I mean, in Santa Barbara, what fish are we talking about? Again, I mean, it's endless. We had, for example, one of our other winemakers here brought in a giant skate over the course of harvest, and we marinated it in this really wonderful sauce and barbecued it, and had it with Pinot Noir. And it was this very light, flaky fish, but because of the marinade and the grill and the char and the carb and everything just led directly towards a very smoky vintage, like our 17, with that wonderful kind of subtle earthy quality and a little reduction, and it was gorgeous. If we'd prepared that, just a little lemon, a little squeeze, and a lighter side of the skate, Chardonnay all day.
So it is the preparation more than the meat itself.
I suppose.
Okay.
I'm going on record with this. There's a multitude of options. Yeah. I'll give you that.
So what do you think someone misses out on who hasn't had the privilege yet to taste your wines?
Sure. I think with the Hilt specifically, with our Chardonnay, I think there are three real factors that make it unique and wonderful in this world, and kind of the things that make Santa Rita Hills Chardonnay so special. First and foremost, I think there's this lovely green citrus quality that's latent in all of our wines. It's just something in the Chardonnay. I like to say lime pith, almost like the zest, but a little bit of the white, almost the slight wonderful bitterness to it that makes your mouth water. I think the electricity, we bottle our Chardonnays under 3.2 pH and, 8.5 grams of acid, and they vibrate. I mean, there is a specific shock of that acid that makes your mouth water more. And then again, like I was saying earlier, the salinity, that oyster shell brine that kind of seals the wine and pushes that finish and makes that just the persistence just go on and on and on. For me, the Chardonnays are really singular. With our Pinot Noirs, they really explore the dark side of Pinot. They explore what I like to call the hint of corruption, which is the earthiness, the spice, the sous-bois, the things that I mean, when a Pinot is sugar and spice and everything nice, it's really wonderful, and it's a full pleasure to drink when it has a velveteen texture and very soft, supple tannins. We love structure in our Pinots. We love almost a black pepper spice that shows up from a number of our diatomaceous earth blocks. We like a Pinot with guts, and we like a Pinot with tannin, and we like a Pinot that just kind of embraces the tough side of Pinot, which I love.
Well, now you've described these two different styles of your wines. And excuse me as my mouth waters, since, I was just sipping Chardonnay, so I'm getting that salinity and searing acid, which is beautiful. But if space aliens were to land on this property here, which of your wines would you want to present to them?
Space aliens?
Uh-huh.
They can be so picky. Boy, good question. I would rock the space aliens with our... right now, I got to go with our estate Chardonnay. I think it would tell them exactly where they are, better than any sign could possibly do.
Well, talking about where we are, I know that you said that you purchased this property in 2014, yep. And that the vines were planted in 2007, but you've also replanted some of the vines around here, so some are 3 years old, but nothing really more than 12 years old, and you're still learning the property. Do you see, from vintage to vintage, a lot of variation? Do you see a lot of consistency? How do you interpret vintage in a place like this?
I embrace vintage variation. I love it. I think this is a farming endeavor, and it's a natural product. So for me, I love when we see that. That being said, we're pretty spoiled. I mean, in Santa Barbara, in California as a whole, but Santa Barbara, they're slight bends. There's never a break. Knock wood. I've never had to pick, I don't believe, because of disease pressure or climatic issues. It's always been fairly heavenly. Every year, it rains, a tenth of an inch, and we panic and run for the hills, pulling our hairs out. But vintage variation. We'll pick a week earlier or pick a week later, but it really is very consistent. Mm-hmm. That being said, I think there are certain aspects to every vintage that shine. There's the mouthfeel of the 16s. There's the kind of bright, shining sunshine in 17 that's so specific to me. And Pinot Noir maybe, to me, reacts a little bit more extremely with the vintages, but extremes may be a little of a stretch. Mm-hmm. The Pinot Noirs in 19, for example, versus 18, sure there are differences, but if we were to taste and really focus, we might be able to grab them, and with time and bottle, they will show, and we'll be able to really tell the difference. But again, it's not black and white, it's always gray.
Right. And so are there any signs or omens you look for that will help you predict what a harvest is going to give you, what a particular year is going to be like?
The winter. I think the winter leading up. I think down here, water is really the issue. And being sentient of that, how much fruit are we going to leave on the vines? How wet was the soil this year? Did we get May rains? That to me really pushes us forward. And we're definitely not a winery that says, wow, we have flowering, let's pick, in exactly X days. We watch and we take our time, and I walk and taste and walk and taste and walk and taste. And there's no, the birds have started to fly or I need to the days are shortening or nothing like that. It's really more of paying attention to what's happening early in the season. Because even heat spikes later, they can really affect us. But a lot of our vines are so deep-rooted that they don't respond as quickly. They don't react as angrily. They've matured past their angry adolescence in some cases. So even heat spikes now are becoming less and less of an issue. Add to that the fact that we're in the far southwest corner of the AVA, which is so... It snuggles right in with the ocean. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's that liquid sunshine, or that liquid sunshine and refrigerated sunshine that I was talking about earlier. For us, it gives us this day where it's always bright and sunny, but it never gets hot. It's always, it was 80 degrees like 2 days last year. Mm-hmm. It's just always so chilly. So
you were talking about how you walk through the vineyards. As you're walking through the vineyards and spending time day after day, do you talk to your vines? And if so, what do you say to them?
Talk to them? Yeah. Right. You know what? I have a couple times in the last couple of years. Uh-huh. And, it was really funny. I was in a vineyard block where we're planting really young vines. And we were really pushing them a long way. We're trying to make them struggle. We're trying to make them push roots at the right time. And I felt terrible about myself as a human being because they looked awful, right?
Well, and you were telling me when we were up there that they're not necessarily the happiest of vines, but they're the most prideful of vines. So you must talk to them to know how they feel.
And I'm a Midwestern guy. I'm kind and caring. No, but I did actually, in a dark moment, talk to the vines and apologize a little bit and just said, hang in there. And, I'm a nice guy like that.
And when they come in here to the winery and they're in the cellar, I know you guys are playing music because you were flipping through and saying that everyone has a little say in what plays. Do you feel that has an impact on the wine?
The music?
Uh-huh.
I guess so. I'll put it this way. I think as a plant and soil scientist, as a kid who always kind of connected more with plants than people in some cases, when I first got into wine, I was a terroirist in the sense that wine is really driven by soil. Wine is driven by climate. Wine is driven by aspect. Wine is driven by any number of factors, right? And that by the time we get the fruit, it's done. And working with an exceptional group of people for the last 16 years, I now realize the terroir is driven just as much by people and by just the team as a whole, and I really embrace that. I think happy people make far better wines. So to circle around a very odd path, I would say having positive energy in your winery, having good music, Death metal's fine. As long as it makes somebody happy. I think that the human aspect is something I never really took into consideration, and I think it's become a really big part for me and something that I appreciate more and more every day.
So you said that you have a great team around you, and I know that this winery is younger. The winery is brand new that you're building here in the Santa Rita Hills. Have you guys instituted any traditions, any sort of good luck rituals that you do at the start of harvest or maybe at the end or throughout?
Good luck rituals?
Any traditions?
We do. We changed our culture this year a little bit in that what we used to do. I mean, there's no like grand fete at the beginning of harvest. We don't like savor champagne and put the last year's sparkling into the new ferment, which is great. And I love that. I love traditions and I really embrace it. But we changed our culture a little bit this year, and I'm really into it. I've always been a believer that harvest shouldn't be, you don't need to be a martyr. You don't need to just be at work all day because you feel like you want to be at work all day. I think you can take care of everything, kick some serious butt, make some beautiful wines, get into the rhythm of harvest. And again, you don't have to be a masochist. So we switched this year. We'd come into the crack of dawn because who has anything to do at 3 a.m. anyways?
Sure.
We hammer it out. We eat a massive lunch. We relax. We taste really gorgeous wines. It could be pertinent to what we're doing. It could be absolutely random orange wines from Georgia. We finish our work at about 6 and we go home. And that is a completely foreign, talk about alien. That is the most alien concept to early Matt Dees that I can imagine. We would come in at the crack of dawn, we'd work, we'd take a big lunch, we'd work, we'd take a huge dinner, and then we'd get back to work from like 8 to 12. I don't know that it's necessary. So as far as traditions, we're becoming big lunch people. And we're dropping our dinner and we're taking time to celebrate but not punish ourselves, I would say.
So we'll talk to you in 10 years and see if you've honored this tradition and made it actually a tradition of the winery.
I will look 10 years younger.
So when you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up? I know you said you studied soil sciences. Did you want to play with dirt?
I wanted to play baseball, to be honest. But whenever I was in left field, the ball would go sailing over my head because I was digging up worms. I wanted to be an archaeologist, and then I wanted to be a marine biologist. This is a very specific step that went. And then I wanted to be involved in forestry. Not sure how I came to the last one, but I got there. And then I realized to be in forestry, you kind of had to go to the dark side to make a living. And I fell in love with plants. I fell in love with plant fizz, plant path, and fell in love with wine at the same time. And in between a bottle of wine and a grapevine, you're kind of hooked. And it was pretty simple from there.
And when you're not working, how do you spend your free time?
I chase 2 kids, to be honest. No, I separate myself completely from the industry. And I don't know if that's unique in this industry or not, but for example, I live in Santa Barbara. And a large part of the reason that I live in Santa Barbara is because I want to separate and I want to go home. And I want to turn off my winemaking mind. I remember living in Napa back in, 99, 2000, and going out on dates. And I remember my date asking me what I thought the pH of any given beer was, as I'm in a sports bar hanging out, like having a date, having fun, and I recoiled at that because when I go home, I love wine, I drink wine. I married a saint of a woman, and if I speak in an accent, she throws me out of the house, If she hears a hint of French accent in my voice, I'm out. And I love that because it gives me a separation. So I spend most of my time on the beach when I'm home, most of my time playing soccer, playing guitar poorly. But I really try to separate myself for balance. And that's really hard in this industry because it's all encompassing. And once you get bitten by the wine bug, you get bit hard, really hard. And it's always a challenge for, I'm sure, any industry where you love what you do.
Sure.
But winemaking for me it can be hard to step away. But that's what I do. I step away. Yeah.
So you said you have 2 small children that run around, so that I know that keeps you busy. But when you're able to plan those romantic evenings with your wife, what sort of wines end up on the table? Whether at home or in a restaurant, what would really make for a romantic evening wine-wise?
That's a really good question. Romantic evening at home with the wife, wines coming out on the table. I would say We do love sparkling. I answered you that I like still more. And I would stick with that. We love sparkling. We drink a ton of the wines that I produce because they're good. Because they're the best wines in the world. No, because I think it's the industry. I have open bottles all the time, and we do tastings. We taste here at the winery, and we end up with a ton of really beautiful wines that are, on a timeline. We drink a great deal of white Burgundy. Again, we drink a ton of kind of, I wouldn't say entry level, but maybe different parcels. A lot of Saint-Aubin, a lot of Centenay. When I can afford it, I'll really stretch and get like a Chassagne or a Pouligny. But beyond that, when it gets cold or even cloudy, again, we'll dig in. We'll go as heavy, hearty red as we possibly can. You name it, we drink it. Yeah, it's a tough one. If I get inspired, I'll tell you.
Okay. So when you think back to people giving you advice over the years, is there any particular piece of advice that you carry with you every day that really stands out, and who gave it to you?
My dad always said, make hay while the sun shines. And that to me has been a massive thing.
And how do you interpret that?
Be smart, work your tail off, get things done. We've always been an incredibly efficient winery. We've always done, with my small team here, a tremendous amount. And we take a great deal of pride in that. But I think we've always worked smarter instead of harder. Again, just the industry can lull you into just kind of hanging around to hang around. And we get things done. Like John Wooden said, work quickly but never hurry. And that's something we've really kind of taken here. And I think qualitatively it's better. I think we've really just become that efficient in our energy. And it's not me. I'm not the most efficient man. It's this incredible crew of people who work with me, who kind of keep my dreamy mind in order and kind of keep my feet on the ground. God bless them.
And if you could offer advice to our listeners, what sort of piece of advice would you like to share?
Try a bottle of the Hilt tonight. No, advice like to wine drinkers or producers or?
I'm going to guess that's who's listening, so.
I don't know. Check out the new Wilco album. It's amazing. No, I think something we were talking about earlier to me was I think a lot of people today in this industry have these preconceived notions about like, I don't like Chardonnay, or I don't like any grape, fill in the word, fill in the blank, Mad Lib style. I don't like, Chasselas, whatever it is. Somebody somewhere is making a wine out of that grape that's really worth checking out. And I think that there's no real point in being closed-minded today because there are producers everywhere doing really remarkable things. I think Rita Hills is a great sign for that. If people that say, I don't like Chard, I don't like Pinot.
Come here.
Poppycock, yeah. There's some great wines out there, right? There's people making light, fresh Chardonnays. There's people making Chardonnays of substance and like malolactic, full, the buttery side, the rich side with the oak. And there are people making incredibly light, fresh, fragrant Pinots with stems. There are people letting their Pinot hang forever and making a little bit more like Sur Maturité and a little bit riper, richer side. And they're all really lovely. Yeah.
So when you look back at your career, what would you say is one of your proudest achievements to date?
I think assembling the team I have now is the best thing I've ever done for this winery. I would say being part of, I think maybe more than anything, being part of this generation in San Rita Hills. It's a really wild time because the founders are still young. We're all kind of in it together. It's a very, very young region, and legends are walking amongst us. And the conversation includes us. And I think we're writing our own rules and kind of designing and kind of feeling out this initial push of the San Rita Hills, which only happens once. So to be a part of this and to be, I think, helping to push it in a positive direction, embracing typicity and embracing the region as a whole, but also willing to look a little bit deeper and have an open mind. I think this generation, we're growing Syrah, we're growing Riesling, we're growing Grenache. What's the best grape? Who knows? We're going to find out. Should the AVA be divided up? I don't know. They did a pretty darn good job doing it in the first place. But I'm really ferociously proud and feel very lucky to be a part of this day and age, and specifically the San Rita Hills.
Beautiful sentiment. So complete the sentence for me. A table without wine is like...
Jesus. It's almost worse than breakfast with no coffee. I don't know. A table, I don't know. It's awful. It's abysmal.
So we're sitting at a table right now. We're talking. There's a window out there. If you could imagine that a bunch of paparazzi were outside photographing because someone very important was sitting here drinking this wine with us, who would you want that person to be drinking the Hilt?
Do they have to be living?
No.
Levon Helm. For sure. If he ever drank my wine, I would have felt pretty legit.
Okay, wow, without hesitation. Yeah. I love that.
I love him. Yeah, of course. Of course. Who doesn't love Levon Helm? Good Lord.
So, here we are. We're in a really special place. You say it's a young region. It has, maybe 50 years on it. Maybe when it first was planted, probably not even that much. Where do you think we'll be in 100 years' time, 500 years' time, or beyond? Do you think we'll still be drinking wine?
Oh, just in general, or Santa Rita Hills?
Well, I know you can't predict what's going to happen specifically in this place given climate change, but,
I think we will. I think, let's speak specifically Santa Rita. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, you see what happened in the last couple of years. I got here in 2004, and that's 15 years ago, and it's gone completely backwards and upside down and changed all over, yet stayed true to itself. Mm-hmm. I think that over time, if I was just to guess, I think Chardonnay plays a larger role here. I think Syrah has a lot of room to grow. I think Pinot has a place at the table, there's no question. I think some of the world's greatest Pinots come out of this region as it is now. And I think slowly the best vineyards survive. I think that the best vineyards will continue to thrive. And I think people will always drink wine.
So should people not be able to drink any more wine and you're sent off to a deserted island, what 3 bottles would you take with you?
I've thought about that for a long time. I would drink Tecate with lime. To be fair, I would, because it's the beach. When's the last time you were on the beach and had right? I guess? I don't know.
Yeah, assuming your deserted island is a warm beach. But I mean, it's...
No, I get it. But but specifically, definitely Tecate with a little bit of salt and lime. I would take... again, my good friend Jean-Marc Vincent, I'd take his 2015 or 16 Centenay Gravier. I'd take... Oh, that's such a tough call. I don't want to be the guy who says one of my wines.
It's okay.
No.
You wouldn't be the only one.
Really?
And
oh, come on.
This is your deserted island. If you want to take your wine and remember it, I think there's no harm in that.
I'd take maybe a 16 Hilt. I'd take Chardonnay. And because it's a desert island and I'm going white... I'd take a Bonnet de Martre. Corton Charlemagne.
Okay.
I'd take the 14, if they'll give it to me.
So now that you've been very specific with those 3 wines,
yes,
we play a little fun game at Wine Soundtrack where we like to pair them with music, whether it's what you would think it kind of reminds you of or what you'd want to listen to. So going through those 3 wines, and I may throw a few others at you afterwards, what would you... That Centenay, what does it make you think of?
Oh, God. Can I do just Hilt wine?
Sure.
With music?
Sure.
Because I spent all my time, it's hard because I spent all my time listening to music, making and drinking the Hilt.
Okay, so let's start. We had a beautiful pet nat, which you said was one of your first times doing it. You never thought you would. A pet nat Pinot Noir. I'm going to give you that hard one.
Oh, God, what music goes with that? I would say something incredibly fun like... this one? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this bottle.
Okay.
Pet nat.
Yeah. Let us say... Jerry Jeff Walker, Viva Terlingua.
Okay.
If you know that album.
I don't, but...
Because it's really wonderful. I mean, if you know the Santa Rita Hills and you know where we are, it's incredibly western and kind of a little rough. And this wine is nothing but fun. And, I mean, it's such a wonderful... style. I love Pet Nat now that we've made it actually really embrace it. I was a little skeptical because I'm kind of an old man at heart. But something like a little outlaw country seems about right.
Okay. What about the Hilt Chardonnay 2017 that we were just sipping?
The Hilt Chardonnay 2017. an album, huh? Or a musical.
Or a particular song, or an artist. You can go generic.
I've been drinking a lot with Ode to Joy, the Wilco album, because it's bright. It's just amazing.
And this beautiful Pinot Noir that we just poured, which is the 2017.
A little AC/DC Powerage. Yeah.
And now I'm going to take you into, because you're releasing for the first time, the 2017 single vineyard wines. So the Bedrock Chardonnay, which was just searing acidity and just gorgeous.
Yeah. Boy, that's really hard. That's a really hard wine to match with music. It's almost like a Love Supreme or something like that. It's like a Coltrane kind of, because it's edgy. And it could be breathtakingly beautiful, but edgy. Maybe Coltrane Love Supreme.
Okay, and then Radiant Pinot Noir, the other vineyard designate.
Oh, man. That's a really hard one. Probably the name of this band is Talking Heads. That wine always, so much of Radian is challenging, and Talking Heads music could be very challenging, but it always tasted new and exciting. And every time I taste Radian, it's just evolving and deep, but also fun, and it's a magical vineyard. Yeah, something along those lines. And that's super grandiose. Those albums are the greatest of the greats of the greats. But I'm such a musical mind that whenever I do think, it's funny you asked this question. I actually did a tasting years ago with friends, matching music with songs. And it was a wonderful challenge.
Yeah.
As crazy as it sounds, we found songs that wines that tasted better with certain songs than other songs because of the way it puts your mind. But I'm a big fan of that way of thinking as I get older.
Well, you survived. Congratulations. So I'm curious, is there one place in the world that's at the top of your bucket list to go explore next? Particularly a wine region?
Oh, okay. For wine, I want to go to Hungary. I want to go to Tokaj. Yeah. Any listeners who are in Tokaj, please let me know.
And for anyone who's listening that would like to come visit you, or where can they find your wines and how can they visit you?
I mean, they're very well distributed, again, kind of all over the U.S. The best way to really experience the wines is to come visit us here, specifically at this winery. Again, the hospitality will be up by the end of the year. It's going to be really special. And we look to have an experience that really lets people understand this vineyard, because it's the vineyard that's so remarkable. And yeah, I mean, specific countries, we're all over Europe. Asia's very big for us. But you really want to experience it, you got to come see us.
And we can find you online. Your website is?
thehiltestate.com.
And can we find you on social media as well?
That's a good question. I don't partake, but yes, you can.
Well, great. We will check you out online. We will come visit you in the Santa Rita Hills. And Matt, thank you so much for joining us today at Wine Soundtrack.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack USA. For details and updates, visit our website, winesoundtrack.com.